Welcome back. You are tuned into another episode of The Last Word on Rugby. We were thoroughly entertained by the two South African sides this past weekend. Not so much by the Bulls, obviously going down heavily once again in the URC final against Leinster. It looks like finals just aren't meant to be for the Bulls. Whether it's at home or away, they've come up short time and again. And we're going to delve a bit deeper into their issues. But first of all things, we need to talk about the Boks, how they fared, and then looking forward to what England will bring in that Nations Championship opener next weekend. With me today, Mike Greenaway, John Goliath. Now, if you haven't yet, click that like button on our YouTube channel at The Clutch ZA. Subscribe to our podcast and then the channel that brings you the latest sport, whether it's rugby with the Boks, the URC, the FIFA World Cup. We have everything for you at The Clutch ZA. Guys, I don't know what to make of all these surprises that Rassie Erasmus has sprung on us over the last couple of weeks, but a very, very entertaining weekend by the Boks and the SAA team. Obviously, an 80-pluser against the Barbarians after it looked like the Babas were going to hold their own. And then plenty of guys in the SAA team cracking the nod, well, for the Boks, and then going on, some of them to go and represent the junior Boks now. Mark, I'm going to start with you. Just your thoughts on what this past weekend meant for the Boks and Rassie Erasmus as they approach the 2026 test season.
Yeah, so it was never going to be about the results of the games. It was always about how certain individuals fared. Guys coming back from injuries, guys getting given a shot. I'm talking about the youngsters, and guys being given opportunities in certain positions. All very much about Rassie's first move on the chessboard of a very, very long season. It was really about warming up, acclimatizing, trying different things, call it what you like, um, as he gets prepared for a very long season ahead. And yeah, I thought almost all the boxes were ticked, maybe some problems on defense here and there. But he wanted to look at Riley Norton at a higher level, for example. I mean, we can't go through all the examples, and he got his answers. He wanted to see if Kieran Horn and people getting carried away about analyzing his performance. It was always about whether going ahead, if he is on the bench in a 6-2 split, can he come
Yeah.
on in an emergency and do a job for 15, 20 minutes? And I
Mm.
think the answer there is yes, he can. It's not like he's replacing Mani Lipoko. I mean, some of the stuff I read, I thought, yes, what are you guys thinking, man? This was just a little experiment, and yes, Kuhn can do a job there. But all in all, I thought that a lot of guys put their hands up. Yes, we must take cognizance of the opposition. Yo, and I feel for Zimbabwe. Look, maybe they can improve quite a lot still before Australia next year. But dare I mention, in their pool at the next World Cup is England. The very same England the Boks are playing in 10 days' time. But yeah, look, I thought those lighties in the SAA team jawled. Wow, we can rave about so many of them, but yeah, and I think the junior Boks looking good as a result for defending their crown in Georgia.
Yeah, I think also for me the most important thing about the weekend was the minutes in the legs of some of the
Yeah,
guys
Yeah.
who haven't played in a long
Yeah.
time, like your Peter Steves, the Toits especially. He's gonna be such a
yeah,
key player because he's still our premier blindside flanker, one the best in the world. It was also interesting to see Jasper Wiese back at the back of the scrum. And then Evan Roos also coming on in the second half. So everybody basically had a decent outing. I think Riley Norton, you mentioned him. This kid looks like he's gonna be a proper successor to Eben Etzebeth. He just has once in a while, and I think we saw this with Sasha also a couple of years ago. And then a youngster comes through with a bit of aura and a
Mm.
bit of look at
Mm.
this is that
Yeah.
this guy, he's a proper player. He's gonna be a proper star. And you look at Riley Norton and just the ways he carries himself and the way had rugby intelligence to go with his
Yeah.
with his physicality. That kid, I think he's gonna be a proper heir to Eben Etzebeth's throne.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
was
just
gonna.
very quickly, can I add? Sorry, man. Just on Riley, sorry, Leighton. Older watchers, listeners might remember Mornay du Plessis, and Riley Norton for me is another Mornay du Plessis for guys who I'm giving away my age now. I mean, Mo- Mornay was an absolute statesman of Springbok rugby and just a gentleman on and off the field who had that aura and then had the talent on the field. So yeah, if you get to see any clips of Mornay du Plessis, you'll be reminded of or Riley Norton is almost a dead ringer. They almost look slightly similar. Sorry about that, Leighton.
No, one other guy I was going to say, someone that Riley learned from quite a lot this season in the Stormers setup when he was with the Cape team. If he was not on junior buck duty, is Ruben van Heerden, another surprise inclusion
Mm.
there. But someone who has paid his dues, I feel, since he came to Cape Town, worked his behind off with whatever he does, and he's also one of those guys who goes about doing his thing, but with minimal flash and all of that. He's astute in the lineouts. He's physical. He's carries. He's got ball skills. His hands are so good. And playing against Zimbabwe and then getting a call up from the box. I mean that must say something about just how much he has impressed and seeing that there's a couple of guys out with injuries. Rassi and the rest of the management is looking at him. So having that youngster in Riley coming through who can play lock, who he can play seven flanker, utility forward. Um, Great for the box heading into the 26th season, but then also someone who can fill potentially a spot that's left vacant by RG Snyman, Ruben van Heerden, just with what he brings in the lineouts, but also with his general play and all of that. Guys, I feel for who missed out. Faf amazingly looked sharp in terms of what he brought to that game. Yes, we know it was a tiring Baba side towards the end, but really feel for him. Someone like Elrich Low who didn't make the cut because of what other guys did in a similar position than him, guys.
Yo,
Yeah.
I really feel for Faf. Sorry, Mike, if I can go quickly, because I looked back before this match. I went to go watch the highlights of the last two World Cup finals, and the role he played in those two
Mm,
matches, for me, it's basically the match winner um, with his play, his doggedness, that box kicking, and everything. So I don't know if they are just if Rassi's still looking at other people at this point. We know Shell Yankees is back in the squad. Maybe he's looking at Herschel. Maybe he knows what he's got in Faf
mm,
at the moment. That's why Faf is being given a lacquer week with the Barbarians. Maybe he knows what he's got in Faf because for me. I'd definitely have Faf, even if it's as the third scrum off. I'm definitely having Faf at the World Cup, just because of just because of those performances. Which I mean, Faf wasn't even the starting scrum off going into the last World Cup final. Cobus Reinach played in the quarters and the semis, and then for the final, here comes Faf because he's been there, he's done that, and he's got two World Cups to show for it.
And I think that's exactly why he's not with the box now, because he ticked all those boxes that you're talking about, John. Rassie, in fact, did touch on it in his press conference on Tuesday, where he said, don't read too much in the fact that a guy like Faf de Klerk is now out of the squad. It means we wanted to have him in to look at him. We haven't had him man to man for a long time. So in other words, he's come and shown that he's still got it, and now Rassie can let him go, bring in Herschel, and who he hasn't. Herschel Yankees hasn't played for the Boks since August of 2023. So yes, they have a look at what he's doing for Bayonne in the French top 14, but they want to have him in the Springbok camp where they can sit down and catch up with him, and then, okay, yeah, he's good to go, or give him a mark out of 10 where he fits in. And Rassie actually quite graphically explained how the season kind of works for him, with players coming and going. He said, I've got a chart in my office with about 70 odd players who are on our radar. And I've got the list of names, and next to them, I've got a tick if they're healthy and playing. If they're injured, then the next box when they're coming back. So he's got the whole thing mapped out. And according to what he sees there, he said almost months before selects his squads, saying, these are the guys I will have for this block of the season. These are the guys I won't. Some of these guys won't be there for the next block, or some guys will be coming back. And so he charts the season according to when players are going to be coming back and when players need a rest. So he said, during the Nations Championship, I'll be tweaking here and there. A couple of players will drop out, a couple of players will come in. Then the greatest rivalry, same thing. The squad is a fluid thing, and it will change according to demands as the season goes by and when we expect players to come back. So I don't think we should sort of get too overexcited about when a player is. It just means Rassie knows what he's got. Now let's have a look at the next guy. And he said, before we get to Australia in what, 10 months' time or whatever it is, I want to have given every guy on our radar an opportunity, and then we know that we've left no stone unturned.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, that is exactly the kind of insights that you get from Rassie Erasmus, and his management. There's no hiding of what they want to do and how they see themselves doing it. It's not going to be publicly influenced. There's uproar about this one not making it in that one, and then bending to what the public wants. And we know certain coaches did that in the past, but there's just this openness and this open book when it comes to how Rassie Erasmus and his management, his assistant coaches, are managing the box, certain paths they have for certain players. Like Mike mentioned, now that chart that has those 70 odd players mapped out and where they are going in. So I just feel it's time that people need to, but okay, people will always have their opinions and all of that. But we've seen with the last two World Cups how things have mapped out according to what they have planned and how things have worked out. So South Africans and Springbok supporters can rest assured that whatever they are planning, it's with the end goal in mind. Yes, there are going to be some speed bumps along the way with untimely injuries, and someone needs to step in, but that guy who's stepping in as well has been on that map or is on that map to fit into a specific piece of the puzzle, if I can call it that. And it's exactly the same with the six uncapped guys that is selected now for this Nations Championship. Where a Paul de Villiers will slot in terms of what he wants from a six flank, a fetcher who can back up Sia, or someone who can form a big part of maybe a redesigned bomb squad, because as we know, that bomb squad is they are aging. And certain guys are starting to reach the end of where they fit into the bomb squad. We saw with Trevor Nyakane, Vincent Koch now. Yes, Rassie knows what he's got in those guys, but it's time that another guy steps into that, whether it's Tuks Mchunu, Paul de Villiers, Marco van Staden. We will see in the next couple of weeks what that specifically looks like. And John, I'm going to put you on a bit of a heater here, but looking at that England squad, do you feel they'll be all that coming to the box and facing them here in one test in that opener next weekend?
Yeah, Leighton, the one big omission for me is obviously Maro Itoje, who's been probably the leader, the heart and the soul of that team, and also someone who loves to get under the skin of the Springboks with a bit of jersey pulling here, bit of back chat here, and also
First
in the
pumping
ref
here.
face, first pumping here. But I mean, if you look at that team, you look at the box. This is again an England team now in transition again, and they've got a couple of injuries as well coming into this tour, and we know how hard it was for them. I know it was almost like 4 or 5 months ago that they were so poor in the Six Nations.
Mm,
So I'm expecting them to be competitive, but if the box, and I think the only thing that can maybe um, be sort of the biggest obstacle for the box is maybe rustiness in terms of, okay, he had a good outing against the Barbarians, but I mean that was basically a bit of a blowout
mm.
in the end. So are you starting with Eben Etzebeth? Will he be starting next week? He hasn't played any rugby in a long time. Peter Steph the Toy played against the Barbarians, but he also hasn't played rugby in a while. Mani Libbok hasn't played
Money.
rugby in a while. Um, so then obviously there's the Bulls guys coming back. Um, they will definitely be match fit and ready. The likes of Cameron Hanekom, Rowan Norkia, those types of guys will go low. Although he did throw up in the final because he was ill apparently. So those guys will be back. But I mean, if you put the two teams together on paper, it should be about a 15-20 point win for the Box. But the only thing is the rustiness that I'm
Yeah.
worried about of next weekend.
Yeah, I agree with you there in terms of that rustiness. We saw what happened last year when the same type of thing sort of played itself out in terms of facing the Barbas at the start, and then moving into that Italy test, that first one up in the north. Same with the Australia game, having easier tests to start the year off with. And the guys just looked a bit rusty, if I can call it that. Spectacular start, but then that in that Australia game, that second half, yeah. Hopefully, there's no more physical exertion in terms of running in the IFL ahead of facing England. Yeah, we don't want to see a flat Springboks, especially if they put up a big lead against England in the second half at Ellis Park, Mike.
Yeah, and we don't want Henry Pollock to have any reason
Oh,
to be dancing
yeah,
dancing
yeah.
around Ellis Park. No, and it was interesting to hear how Rassie dealt with that because when we talk about England these days, the first name that springs to mind is Henry Pollock. I mean, wow, the hype around this guy. In England they're loving him. Anywhere else in the world they're loving to hate him. I mean, I mean, Schalk Burger, he's a TikTok dancer who plays a little bit of rugby every now and again. Was a great quote,
That
but
was a great
you
joke.
know.
Yeah.
Rassi, of course, has to be a little more circumspect in what he
Mhm.
says. And he spoke very nicely. He said, excuse me, that, there are certain players. I mean, in a rugby team, you're going to have different personalities. And every now and again, you have a guy with a different personality altogether. And that is obviously Henry Pollock. Now, Rassi says his teammates obviously are used to him. They take it with a pinch of salt. And all that matters is can you do the job on the field?
Hmm.
And Rusty said, if I was coaching that guy and he does what he does, I would ignore it if I looked at his output, if we looked at his
Yeah.
stats, and if he was hitting all his KPIs, then he can dance to the heavens or do whatever the heck he wants, as long as he's performing. And Rassi
Yeah.
said this guy is performing. We see it with Northampton week in, week out. They just won the English Premiership. So, as far as we're concerned, on the topic of Henry Pollock, he's an extremely good rugby player, and we have to contain him on the field of play. What he does outside the field of play, that's England's concern.
Yeah, that's a really interesting observation there of Rassi. I know he probably would have wanted to say another few things, but I think he'll save it for match week. We know there's no love lost between the Boks and the
And
English. Yeah,
And mind you, Rassi's no stranger to TikTok himself. Let's be
yeah,
frank.
yeah, yeah.
We're talking about a guy who dances with his bulldog in the early hours of the morning sometimes. So.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, continuing on that Pollock topic, I mean, I think, and this is just me foreshadowing what will potentially happen is he's going to be that hype guy to get under the skins of the Bok players. And everyone's been hyping this up ever since ever since he's been on the scene and been in English contention. So it's going to be vital for the Springbok players not to fall into that trap of him allowing him under their skins. Yes, there can be. There most definitely should be a friendly rub of the head and all of that. When he's at the bottom of a ruck or tackle, by all means, Eben, South Africa would want you to go ahead and do that. But then the most important thing is for Pieter-Steph, whoever else is playing Sia, to just put a little right shoulder into his rib cage, like right here beneath his armpit, to just tell him, yeah, welcome to South Africa. 2018 didn't work for England, so hopefully 2026 is another year that they go home without winning the battle. Yes, they won one test back then. That was Newlands, if I recall correctly, John. We toured with
It was
them.
it was a storming that
Yeah,
day.
storming Newlands, but we toured with them in Joburg and in Bloem. Brilliant, brilliant games, brilliant games, a brilliant tour. Rassi's first year, Beast had a milestone in that season. Siya Kolisi as captain, so it's going to be a good welcome back for the English. Yeah, I don't know what you are expecting to see from the English, John.
I remember 2018 Sia's first game as captain, and I mean the build up to that game
Mm.
was
Amazing. Oh my
unbelievable.
word.
It was
Yeah.
it just felt like a renewal at the time. It was sort
Mm.
of the post Alistair Coetzee era.
Yeah.
It was Rassie's first test. He made Sia captain ahead of his first test, and it was just the most unbelievable rendition of the national anthem that day at Ellis Park, and then the box, but the nerves went. I think they went 21-3 down or
Yeah.
something, and then massive comeback
Oh, brilliant.
in
Yeah.
that game, clinched the series in Bloemfontein. Yeah, and it's those, this is going to be the sort of the Nations Cup. This is sort of the new way of doing things now. We won't have these lekker series anymore,
Yeah.
especially these big series. I mean, we
The
all
mid-year.
still, they left us hanging last year with only two tests between Ireland and the
Yes.
Springboks, which finished 1-1. Obviously, the Springboks then clinched the series at the end of the year. But sort of, yeah, we're gonna miss those three test series, but I'm really looking forward to this. I think England last year, before they totally exploded in the Six Nations, they were saying they beat everybody except the Springboks, and then they basically came undone in that Six Nations. So I'm expecting the Boks especially to be highly motivated for that one.
Just on that England game of 2018, just looking back and quite weird now to see how some players have just fell by the wayside because
Mm.
the try scoring heroes in that comeback were Piwe Dayanti and Sabun Corsi.
Yeah.
And they had their whole futures ahead of them. They were red hot in
Mm.
2018, and unfortunately, they didn't realize their potential for various reasons. But quite quite interesting just to look back and see that those were
Mm.
our two potent weapons.
Yeah.
Pity that that didn't happen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I imagine the two of them were still at the highest level with a Kirtley, Cheslin, Edwill,
Mm.
and all these youngsters coming through. Yes, like, but to end the Bok conversation off, South Africa, the Springboks, Rassie Erasmus and his coaches, you are in an enviable position, a worldwide enviable position in terms of the players you have at your disposal and what you create in terms of bringing those players together. So there's going to be a lot weighing on the Boxers' shoulders in terms of the morale of this country going forward into the rest of the year. It's not been too good for our national soccer team on at the FIFA World Cup on the world's most watched stage, but yeah, there's still hope there. Otherwise, Springboks, the country will be looking at you to bring that feel-good factor over the next couple of weekends, and then heading into rugby's greatest rivalry. Yeah, we look forward to Adi Savia and his troops also arriving later this year in South Africa. Guys, before we end off, for those watching, if you haven't yet, click that like button on our channel at The Clutch ZA on YouTube. Subscribe to it as we look to bring you the latest rugby news. Moving quickly to just that Bulls,
Mm.
I don't even know what to call it anymore, whether it's a choke or whatever you want to call it, but four times in a final now, nothing to show for it. And just a lot of people pointing fingers at the coaches, but then it's a bunch of players who some of them have played in all four
Mm.
finals. So where do you start, Mike, quickly if we can end off
Yeah.
by just severing the bull's nerve?
Yeah, hindsight is an exact science, as they say. I just look at how flat the Bulls were in that game, and I wonder if they didn't make a mistake in coming back to Pretoria to prepare for that match. Because remember, they were in Edinburgh for that semi-final against Glasgow. And
Mm,
I know that not long before that, they spent a month in Europe and they probably thought, oh, no, not another couple of weeks. And they said they wanted to sleep in their own beds, train in their facilities they're comfortable with, etc. And that's all fair enough, except that in going back and coming and then going back, it apparently amounted to like 36 to 40 hours of travel, which they
yeah,
wouldn't have needed if they just stayed
put yeah.
in the UK, because they were flat. They never got out the starting blocks. And then they were forced into all the mistakes that they said before the game they didn't want to make. They said they didn't want Linson to
Mm,
get a fast start. They said that they didn't want to have disciplinary mistakes like those yellow cards that came. And they got a yellow card after 3 minutes. Bang, Leinster scored 14 points. And then it's good night, nurse.
Yeah, you can't give Leinster a bit of a sort of a head start, and that's exactly what they did because, and especially with the yellow card as well, those guys are so ruthless and clinical
mm,
in their execution. I mean, they were for me, Leinster was they were miles better than they were against the Stormers.
yeah.
I think I actually think that the week in but the week. Sort of if the final was played a week after the semi-final, they would have struggled because they were
Mm,
coming off that tough game against Bordeaux, and then against the Stormers, and then they basically had a lekker week where they could just recuperate and prepare, and they came out of the blocks flying. And you're right, Mike. That was unnecessary for the Bulls to come back seriously. Go and prepare there. I know sometimes there's also issue Mike spoke about sleeping in their own bed, and they were probably worried about some spies as well, maybe checking their training sessions, and so on. But for me, just because they had such a lovely tour of Europe, where they actually that is actually where the season came back together, where they had those back-to-back wins in the Champions Cup after going 7 matches without a win. They then had the
mm.
back-to-back wins in the Champions Cup and the URC to to basically get back into the URC into contention. So I thought, and they said they found something on tour, the team spirit and what, and then fell together. But guys, also besides the Bulls, how bad was the ref and his TMO? My
Oh,
goodness.
oh, 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 oh.
My goodness. And I mean, it was the Bulls could have even still won the game because at that stage there were two disallowed tries,
Mm.
and which would have put them, I think, 8 points behind at the time. And those were some,
Yeah,
yeah,
good
there were
point.
some, those were terrible calls, man. That is, you can't call them anything else except it was a horror show.
Yeah, yeah. And that is the thing we've been talking about for ages now, that the officiating in the URC, it's just not up to standard. And yes, I've read some comments even out of Ireland in terms of just how they observe the officiating as well. And for me, Andrea Piardi isn't a bad ref. I think he's the best of the bunch that the URC they have at the moment. But there's just I think there's a bit of upskilling needed in terms of the what the what the refs present. And hopefully something is done about it. I think there will be a lot of writings from South Africa in terms of just how from the South African franchises, just in terms of how things are officiated, especially the scrum. Guys, the Bulls couldn't even scrum against Leinster. I mean, once they got their scrum going in the second half, then the penalty started walking off the ref's whistle. But by then the game was well and truly over. Um, but that first couple of scrums and it's an old trick and it's working for the European teams, but they just fail to take the hit. And it seems like the South African sides are chasing the hit, chasing the scrum, and they're blown for early engagement and all of that. The Bulls front row, they were baffled by some of the calls, but they couldn't argue. And like I said, towards the second half, and especially when Wilco Louw came on, the Bulls were walking with a scrum. So hopefully that is rectified. Breakdown calls quite dodgy. But I'm not gonna sit here and say it's the ref's fault and everything. Yes, there were some dubious calls, but the Bulls just never arrived at the races, and quite rightly, a couple of people chirped them. They are now what Leinster is to the Champions Cup. That's what the Bulls are to the URC. So always the bridesmaid, never the bride. So yes, Akker said he still has faith in the side. They're losing a lot of players, a lot of key players. They are bringing in some guys, but yes, like I don't see how they are going to win a URC quite soon if they can't just fix what that that fear of losing in a final. I think they genuinely have that, and if they can't fix that soon, I don't think it's gonna happen for them. Guys, thanks again for the chats. It's always good. Mike, thank you for the insights into what's on Rassi's planning board in his office. I think the viewers, listeners will appreciate something like that. We will be obviously back next week. Looking forward to that first test and what England can bring. If you haven't yet, click that like button on our channel at The Clutch ZA on YouTube. Share this podcast. We have insights, we have some opinions, and then we have some jokes. But things will turn serious for the Boks quite soon when the Nations Championship starts next week, Saturday. For now, that's all we have. Thanks for tuning in. Cheers.